in Europe, the same companies are producing the same products, but they're using natural coloring. But here they can get away with it. We have about almost 1,000 chemicals that are in our food that are either outright banned in Europe or actively discouraged. So you wouldn't be able to buy this kind of stuff in Europe.
RFK Jr., of course, doing the Democrat Party Europe envy thing. Hey, they do it in Europe. We should do it here because Europe's better than us. We're just, the guys that grew bored with driving dune buggies on the moon a half century ago. Don't worry about us shipping golf balls. But I share that soundbite with you of RFK Jr. from months ago now because the Biden administration, Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, just announced moments ago that the FDA, the Democrat-run FDA, will ban red dye number 3 from foods. FDA bans use of red dye number 3 in foods. Chemical dyes, And so that's the Trump effect again. It's the RFK Jr. effect. But really it's the Trump effect because Trump brought RFK Jr. into the fold, into the discussion. He was mocked and ridiculed by the left, naturally, because he doesn't sing from the Democrat Party sheet music all the time. And that is the absolute requirement. And this is just what he's been talking about for a long, long time. And now the Biden administration banning red dye number 3 in all foods. And it's definitely being driven by RFK Jr., who was elevated and put into the spotlight by Donald Trump. So RFK Jr., Donald Trump get credit if credit is due. I'm not an expert on dyes in foods, but probably can't be good. And these things are banned in Canada, which is America's hat, our largest national park. Banned in Europe because, it turns out there's all kinds of science that says that these things cause cancer, which is generally regarded as a bad thing, in animals. I'm an animal. Wait a minute, I'm a mammal lover. I'm a bipedal mammal. Isn't that amazing? So red dye number 3 banned by Joe Biden's FDA before they leave the door, and that's going to be soon. Also, Biden has done a big favor to Cuba on the way out the door because they love communists. Biden removes Cuba from list of state sponsors of terrorism. Why would he do that? And he bans red dye. Why is it? You think it's coincidence that it's red dye, the commies, and all that stuff? Well, you still, don't use red state, blue state because they made conservatives red and made themselves, the left, blue, the only country in the world where the left is not red. Isn't that amazing? And the Democrat Party has never been more red. So Biden administration removes Cuba, their designation as a state sponsor of terrorism, for no reason whatsoever. Absolutely no reason. Florida Democrats rip Biden for lifting Cuba terror sponsor designation. That's because there are a lot of Cuban Americans in Florida who know that communism is bad. It's mass murder and mass theft. Working at Newsmax, which I do every day with Mercedes Schlepp, who's just great. It's her married name. She's a Cuban-American, Mercedes is, and her family, Cuban-American, fled Cuba when the communists attacked, and they stole her family's property, her uncles and her parents, and they all had to flee, and her grandparents. They had properties in Cuba. The communists stole it all, stole all of their property, stole everything on their property because that's what communists do. Because, like Chairman Mao says, all power comes from the barrel of a gun. And that was an Obama administration official that said that. And Mercedes Schlepp is going to be working, I believe, in the Trump White House. And maybe she'll become the American ambassador to Cuba when the communist regime falls. But the Democrats are doing everything they can to prop up and help the communist regime in Cuba. They are not the good guys, not the good guys. So Florida Democratic Party slammed President Biden, the Democratic Party, mind you, slammed President Biden for his decision to lift Cuba's state sponsor of terrorism designation. There's an abbreviation, SST, state sponsor of terror. You have to, hey, the DOS has lifted the SST on C, that's Cuba, because everything has to be abbreviated. Their state sponsor of terror designation in exchange for freeing jailed political prisoners who protested the regime in 2021. Sure, well, the Democrats, why don't we free the political prisoners of January 6th here in the United States? Then we'll agree to lift the Biden administration's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. What do you think? We for the first time here in modern history, have political prisoners in jails all over the place. Grandmothers praying outside the Capitol on January 6th, sent to prison. Grandmother praying outside of an abortion clinic, thrown in prison for years by the Democrat Party, the Biden Justice Department. Not a Justice Department at all. They love communism, hate America. Not on our side. All right, now, as I mentioned, it's Mailbag Day. It's a day for Mailbag. And at the Clinton household, you know what that means. All right? Get out. Hillary has to get out of the house because it's hump day. And Bill Clinton's on the loose. He's a menace to everyone around him and to his own cardio health. Zipper Club and all that. That's another discussion for another day. All right, Mailbag. Let's go to the Mailbag, Michael. Now we're going to the Mailbag. And I have four. I've been provided with four queries. Four queries. Like questions, but a funnier word. And here from Christ, 30505. Christ, with a K, 30505. And here's the question. What year did melting pot disappear from school curriculum to be replaced by celebrating diversity? I suggest we bury diversity and bring melting pot back. It was inspirational to me as a schoolgirl. Because Kristen or Christy, a woman now was a girl, back in the old days before Democrats took gender away from science because of their mental illnesses. Aren't they amazing? Yes, they are. What year did melting pot disappear? And melting pot in quotation marks. It's true, America, the great melting pot, people from all over the world. I was having a great discussion about this at Newsmax yesterday, where I work with people from all over the world. There are literally people from all over the world, Afghanistan and Africa and Latin America and all over the place. And Cuban Americans, Mercedes Schlepp, and all kind of. And we were talking about America being the great melting pot and how it makes us unique. And people. Oh, and I was talking to a woman from Eastern Europe. That's right. And we were talking about Albania. She is Serbian, but we were talking about Albania. And talking about how cool America is because, we are the world. We are the people. And like the song says, we're the coolest because we are a microcosm of the planet. We are people from everywhere. And you come and you join the American project, doesn't matter where you're from. As long as you want to be a part of the American project, you're welcome. As you can become an American. You can't move to France and become French. You cannot move to Japan and become Japanese. You might even be able to become a citizen there, but you'll never be Japanese if you're not Japanese. You'll never be French if you're not French. But you can become an American from anywhere. We're the coolest. And the melting pot thing is the greatest. And it's wonderful. But the left threw that out because they're communists and they want racial conflict. And the Democrat Party, Barack Obama leading the way, racial division and racial conflict, differentiating between us. The whole DEI thing and critical race theory is all about tearing us apart, pulling us asunder based on race and gender and income levels and class. It's race, class, and gender warfare. That's the Marxist construct. And that's what we have here in the United States now. But I'm with Chris 3505 here because we bring back melting pot. Doesn't matter where you're from. You want to join, you want to be American, a real American. Don't show up illegally and start stealing stuff and, robbing people. Then you're a criminal, and I'll catapult you into the ocean. If I had my druthers. I wouldn't shoot you in the leg, though, like Joe Biden. But never mind that. But Chris is right with melting pot. We need to bring back melting pot because that's a positive, melding of all of us from around the world becoming one, e pluribus unum, from many, one. We become one from many. And the Democrats are unum e pluribus. From one, we tear us apart and we become many. And then the left, being the communist Marxists that they are, they pit us against one another, which they do all over the world and have for a century. And that's what the left is doing in the United States. And Barack Obama's leading the way. He's anti-American, un-American. He's a racist, and he's not on our side because he was mentored by a Communist Party member named Frank Marshall Davis when he was a teenager, who taught him that racial division works. And then he found Jeremiah Wright and the rest of his fellow travelers. But Chris 3505 is 100% right. Melting pot was inspirational to her as a schoolgirl. Let's bring back melting pot and get rid of diversity, celebrating diversity. The differences, no, you celebrate, if you must, are what we have in common. And we can all be Americans, but you commies, get out of here. And Travis, on to the next question from the mailbag. Travis says, hi, Chris. How would you compare the disaster caused by the neglect of Newsom's lack of awareness for Southern California's wildfire to that of the Great Chicago Fire? Was Mrs. O'Leary really at fault? At least she could blame a cow for the disaster. Mrs. O'Leary's cow had knocked over the lantern and started the Chicago Fire, right? Well, Newsom gives us no clue. Now, here's the thing. I think Mrs. O'Leary was innocent, even if her cow was guilty, and it's not really clear that her cow was guilty. Chances are the cow was not guilty, and certainly Mrs. O'Leary was not guilty. And certainly Gavin Newsom is guilty, and the Democrats are guilty because they've neglected deliberately, publicly, proudly, defunded, cut back on taking care of the forests and making sure water would come out of your fire hydrants. The Democrats are guilty as hell. I would say, Travis, there's really no comparison at all to the Chicago Fire. The story of Mrs. O'Leary and the cow, believed to be largely myth, if not entirely myth. And the Democrats are actually guilty of mismanaging, misappropriating, malappropriating, misleading, deceiving, pandering to left-wing interests that funnel them money. And these are their chickens coming home to roost, as the racist, anti-American pastor, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright in Chicago, Barack Obama's spiritual guidepost, a racist America hater from way back. You are the company you keep. So we got that. But a good question, Travis, and a lot more to say about that going forward. Rock Chick 111 asks, are you and your best girl going to the inauguration? That is a great question. The truth is, on Monday, I'm going to be on the radio here until noon, and the inauguration starts minutes later. I do not and would not have time to get down to the mall and get into position to be there in time. I will not be going to the inauguration. My best girl and I will be hanging out, we hope, in a place where we can overlook from a distance the inauguration, but we're not going to be there. We might make it down in time for the parade, but it depends on work duties and assignments. So the truth is, we're not going to be there in the crowd for the inauguration, no. But we hope to be able to get someplace in time to overlook from a distance, and then maybe, depending on work duties and commitments, which are still unclear in some instances, maybe in time for the parade down there. But no, have fun there, Rock Chick 111. We've got family coming in for it, and lots of friends, of course. And then final query from the mailbag today from D. Weeby. See, D or DWB. It's D, period, then capital W, B-E-E. D. Weeby, or WB. We got that. Do you like Pete Hegseth as defense secretary as much as I do? The left is treacherous in their attempts to smear good people. Sleazeballs. That's a fact. It's not free speech. It's seditious enemy propaganda, in my humble opinion, meant to harm loyal Americans. DWB, I'm with you 100%. I've got to say, I was very impressed by Pete Hegseth yesterday. And I went in, kind of biting my lip a little bit. And I got to say, he knocked it out of the park. He did great. He did better than I expected him to do. I will say that. I expected him to do okay, but he did great. I was very pleased by what we saw yesterday. And you're 100% right that they're treacherous and they smear good people. Look at Brett Kavanaugh. They make careers out of this stuff. And then the sleazy, slimy Washington Post sleazeballs, as you correctly said, they take it from there with their phony headlines. And you're right, it's not free speech. It's seditious enemy propaganda. It's politics, which they believe is warfare by other means or just warfare outright. They're the party that gave us the first American Civil War. They're uncivil. They're un-American. They're anti-American, and they smear people much better themselves. As one of our brilliant callers said earlier, only 2 Democrats said, thank you for serving your country, in Afghanistan and Iraq and at Guantanamo Bay. No, DWB, you're 100% right.
If you're a rifleman and you lose your rifle, they're throwing the book at you. Mm-hmm. But if you're a general who loses a war, you get a promotion.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Now, Marco Rubio's confirmation hearing to be Secretary of State ongoing right now. And apparently a communist woman from Nicaragua, Spanish-speaking, disrupted, protested, was dragged out of there, I think maybe shot in the leg.
Other nations continue to act the way countries always have.
Pause. Back to order.
I get bilingual protests, which I think is an entry cool.
As you know, that's a first here for us, at least in recent times.
Nicaragua, el Niños de Nicaragua y Venezuela. That's the El Niños. That's not just a weather system, weather condition. It's boys, El Niños. That's not Latinx. That's actual Spanish. That's boys in Nicaragua. I'll translate that too. That's Nicaragua. That's Nicaragua. But she pronounced it Nicaragua. Dun, dun, dun. Now, the New York Times is attacking Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General. The confirmation hearing going on right now. The Democrats are putting the smearing back into the hearing on Capitol Hill, attacking Pam Bondi and smearing her. And they're insisting that she should not listen to the President of the United States, who's her boss and the chief executive and the head of the executive branch, where she will be working as Attorney General. And you may remember Barack Obama's Attorney General, Eric H. Holder Jr., they're insisting that she must not be loyal to the President of the United States, like Eric Holder was to Barack Obama.
I'm happy. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. There's still work to be done. I'm still a president's wingman, so I'm there with my boy.
That's right. I'm still the president's wingman. I'm there with my boy. When you're a Democrat, that's what the Attorney General is supposed to be. When you're a Republican, the Attorney General is supposed to be an insurrectionist who will undermine you, disobey you, stab you in the back, and subvert the law, the Constitution, and the role of the Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, because that's what they insist. The New York Times Democrats push Bondi to declare independence from Trump. She should say, I'm his wingman. I'm his boy, right? Because that's what Eric Holder said, and the New York Times loved that. Isn't that amazing? The New York Times, sure. The Democrats are saying, hey, you know, the senator's questions, and as part of her bid to be Attorney General, promises that politics will not play a part in her decisions. But her answers have embraced Trump's basic charge that federal law enforcement has become tainted by politics. Can I give you 1,000 examples of that being entirely the case? You guys, I'm telling you, just amazing. They're anti-American. They're the New York Times. They're un-American. They're not part of the American project. Just amazing, these people. Yeah, and she's supposed to reject the role of Attorney General and be an insurrectionist, and whatever Trump tells her, she should do the opposite. That's what the Democrats are saying. They're encouraging, I think, civil war, certainly insurrection. Just amazing people. Womp, womp. All right, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Tim, calling from the great state of Missouri. His name is Tim, but they call him Tim. Tim, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yes, good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
I have an idea that Ronald Reagan's first act right after his inauguration was to sign into effect a freeze on federal hiring with certain exceptions that he designated. And President Trump could do it, same thing, for the same reason that Reagan did, which was to cut government spending. But Trump could also use it to accomplish another of his policy goals, which is to cut the size of the federal workforce by issuing an instruction that Reagan didn't, and that was that all of his new cabinet secretaries and agency heads, anytime somebody retires or leaves government service, eliminate a personnel slot, not necessarily the slot vacated, because anytime somebody leaves, there's a chain reaction within the hierarchy. The assistant secretary is replaced by a deputy assistant secretary. Some office director goes up to replace him. And if you would replace somebody in that line, no one would lose his job. And that was the grievance that the public sector unions used to thwart Reagan when he tried to cut the federal workforce. And as the ranks thin, offices would have to be consolidated, and bureaus consolidated or eliminated, and finally entire agencies eliminated. And that may sound like a glacial process, but someone in a position to know told me that in the first 2 years of Trump's first administration, 25% of the senior foreign service retired.
Wow.
And I don't know about the civil service, which is, of course, much, much larger, or the senior intelligence service, but if there were a similar exodus this time, it would give a great opportunity to cut the federal workforce where it matters most, because those senior grades, I mean, that's where all the troublemakers are, all right. the holdovers from Barack Hussein's term, or even Clinton's. People who came in as junior entry level under Clinton, they're still around.
You're right. Yeah, the permanent bureaucracy, the deep state, the Soviet part of our government, which grows and grows and becomes more and more Soviet with each passing administration. You're right.
Now, I'm nobody, and I know nobody, but if some of your listeners, if Mrs. Schlepp is going over to the White House, perhaps she'll think it's a good enough idea to want to take credit for it, and it will get some attention, because I think it's something that it's a way that Trump could do it without firing anybody.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. And let nature take its course. This is going to occur naturally. be aware of it and make it work to our advantage, to the advantage of the American people. And I'll tell you what, Tim, I went and I found from the ReaganLibrary.gov the memorandum directing a federal employee hiring freeze, January 20th, 1981, Ronald Reagan's first inauguration day. Subject, hiring freeze. I am ordering today a strict freeze on the hiring of federal civilian employees to be applied across the board in the executive branch. And it goes on from there. And I've got to say, Tim, I think that you've thought this through, and I think you laid it out beautifully. You're no-nonsense, common-sense Missouri guy.
Well, thanks. I enjoy your show, but this is something I wanted to get out to somebody who does know somebody could bring it to the president's attention.
Great stuff. Really wonderful. It honestly is. And I expect to see Mercedes Schlapp again today. And, her husband, Matt Schlapp, head of CPAC, which has become a global force for conservative political thinking. And, yeah, wonderful stuff. And, yes, and part of the White House, too. Tim, thank you. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy. See, all the normal people out there. This is you listen to this show, you get a little taste of what the real country is like, right? Appleton, Wisconsin, and Marty and Tim from Missouri, and, America. Remember normal, like at the Chris Plant store on Al Gore's Amazing Internet. Yeah, great stuff. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Now, the Washington Post has a fluff piece today, as it is their habit. The Washington Post with a glamorous picture of Dr. Jill Biden, who's not a doctor at all. Although on The View, she's a heck of a doctor and should be the Surgeon General of the United States. But it's a kind of a glam shot, a wonderful photograph of not a Dr. Jill Biden. And the headline is, Jill Biden still hopes for a good ending. Looking for a happy ending at the White House. That's what they want there. The First Lady, after a half century in public life of showing up for dinner parties, that's a tough job, reflects on the past year and looks to the future. And the Washington Post, they're looking for a happy ending for because you know how they are. These people. And the Washington Post is just a flufferama for the Democrat Party. They're not in journalism. They're in Democrat Party politics. And the picture of her looking very First Lady-like. And the First Lady says she's at peace with this ending. But, nothing matters before the word but, only matters after the word but in Washington and journalism and in politics. Let's just say I was disappointed with how it unfolded. She was disappointed with how it unfolded. Why? The Washington Post asked. I don't know. I learned a lot about human nature. No, you learned about the Democrat Party, the filthy, corrupt people that you've been sleeping around with all these years. And oh, did I just say that? Yeah, I did. Yeah. Like the head of your Secret Service detail. Oh, did I just say that too? Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. I think that's all I'm going to say. Now, that's the first few sentences of the story, and the story goes on for pages and pages after that. I won't bore you with the tedium of all that, but let's just say, it's over. Get out. Move out. Your husband has been a terrible failure. Where's Tara Reid? She felt so threatened that she had to leave the country. What's the matter with you people? I got to say.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Go. Get out. Get out for the love of. And amazing. I don't know if I can get to Nancy Mace and all that good stuff. I've got so much good stuff. Oh, here's one of the things that I want to get. Let's go to soundbite number 28. 28. This is the Speaker of the entire House of Representatives, Mike Johnson. And he did something good. He saved women's sports and Title IX. That's Title IX. Title IX. Because we like to use Roman numerals from time to time. But the Speaker of the House, and this is great because the Republicans in the House of Representatives saved women's sports yesterday. and Republicans are going to save women's sports. The headline, well, let me go to Mike Johnson's statement first. House Republicans voted unanimously to protect women and girls in sports. And all the Republicans and 2 Democrats, only 2 Democrats in the House, every other Democrat voted against saving women's sports. And this is remarkable. Mike Johnson.
Today, the House voted to uphold common sense again. We voted
to
require all schools receiving federal funds to uphold the original meaning of Title IX and keep biological men out of women's sports.
Men.
Last Congress, we voted on this legislation as well. We will note that not one single Democrat joined us. Today was an improvement. It's bipartisan. We had 2 Democrats that joined us, but it's shameful. There should have been many, many more.
Well, they're all transgender, and they're against science, and they're just amazing stuff. So this is a wonderful story, and it really is a wonderful story for women's sports, saving the world for women's sports. The fake people at ABC Fake News, Democrat front group, the headline is, quote, "Men have no place in women's sports," end quote, colon. They love their colons. House GOP votes to roll back Title IX changes. That's because the Biden people changed Title IX to the point where it no longer protected women, which was the whole point of Title IX decades ago, to protect women. And they don't do that. Now, the Democrats, again, 2 Democrats voted in favor of saving women and girls sports. Now, an athlete and activist, Adriana McLam, with the Independent Women's Forum, was on the television very early this morning in the 5 a.m. hour. I was watching it for you, of the Fox News channel. Adriana McLam, who will be protesting at the NCAA today in favor of women.
Yeah, it's a great step in the right direction. We're seeing momentum on our side for this one with the election and then legislation last week with the ruling of Tennessee versus Cardona, and now this. It's a step towards common sense being common, that XX does not equal XY, and that women's sports are for women.
Common sense being common. Again, it's the Chris Plant store. She's promoting the Chris Plant store there. You got to please save common sense. Just wonderful stuff. And she's 100% right. And then another woman athlete, also at the Independent Women's Forum, also protesting at the NCAA today, the NCAA. And her name is Sia Leili. And she's talking about what the Republicans did in the House of Representatives.
I definitely think that it's the answered prayer that we've all been working so hard towards. And it's going to be the right step in the right direction towards fairness and just fair competition for women like us who just want women's sports to be for women only.
What? I can't believe that. And to Speaker Mike Johnson, stop saying biological men, just say men. Because biological men is an unnecessary redundancy. When you say men, you're referring to biological men. When you say women, you're referring to biological women. A man is an adult male human. A woman is an adult female human. It's time the Democrats relearned that in their face, like, a rainbow pie. Amazing. I got a little of the lunatics at The View. That's an ABC News product coming up for you.
It's a step towards common sense being common, that XX does not equal XY, and that women's sports are for women.
All right, here's the headline at The Hill today in Washington. With a picture of Michelle Obama looking nasty and mean. And the headline is, Michelle Obama signals she's done with Trump. How many, what, you're going to arrange for him to be shot again or what? She's done with Trump. Was there a time when you were not done with Trump? You didn't show up to Jimmy Carter's funeral because you'd have to be seated next to Trump. You're not going to the inauguration because Trump's being inaugurated. He's going to undo, hopefully, every corrupt thing your husband did. Michelle Obama is done with President-elect Trump. That's a pretty amazing lead sentence here. If her decision to skip next week's inauguration means anything, And it really doesn't. But, you guys, take your meds and get back to me later. Just completely nuts. Now here is, listen to this, Bloomberg News. Trump's plan to slash federal jobs puts black workers at risk. Now, here they're going to play the race card. You want to reduce the size of government, you're racist, says the party of the plantation and the Confederate States of America and Jim Crow, the Democrat Party. Yeah, because government jobs, they're everything for black people, and you don't have more government jobs. Are they blaming black people for the shape that our government is in? That sounds racist. And this is, here's the Trump effect, too. This is kind of funny. The Reuters news agency reporting on an Axios report. The headline at Reuters is, Axios, citing U.S. official, singular, anonymous, comma, says Gaza ceasefire deal has been reached. That's the Trump effect, because Trump and Biden and Kamala have been completely inept and incapable of doing anything. And as part of this ceasefire, release of hostages, Donald Trump said, release the hostages by Inauguration Day or else. And now Joe Biden's going to take credit for a peace deal and release of the hostages, just another lie. Like, what was he taking credit for? The NATO countries paying their fair share. Aren't they amazing? Let's go to, well, gosh, look, we've run out the clock again, haven't we? Oh, we can go 31 with Joyless Behar at The View. ABC News multi-million-dollar employee.
I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't do it, even though I can't sing.
Carrie Underwood is going to perform at the inauguration, and they're very upset at The View.
I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't do it, even though I can't sing. You would not sing? No, I would not. I would not normalize him. And she says, I love our country. How do you love your country and support and normalize somebody who was a convicted felon who really wants to destroy the country, in my opinion? I don't understand how you say you love your country at the same time as you normalize this convicted felon, which I can say now every day.
Which I can say now every day. Which is the Judge Merchan plan, and that's what of course the Jack Smith plan. I'd like to ask the Maroon, who was just babbling with that garbage, what was he convicted of? 34 felony counts, and what were the charges? I'll give you, I'll bet you $1 right now. She couldn't even begin to explain what he was allegedly convicted of by a Democrat lynch mob.